The first reading today is from Isaiah 62, verses 1 through 5. The people's return to Judah after the exile was marred by economic and political troubles. Nevertheless, the prophet declares Jerusalem and Judah will be restored. God will rejoice over Jerusalem as a bridegroom rejoices over the bride, and the people are called to the celebration. For Zion's sake I will not keep silent, and for Jerusalem's sake I will not rest, until her vindication shines out like the dawn, and her salvation like a burning torch. The nations shall see your vindication, and all the kings your glory. And you shall be called by a new name, that the mouth of the Lord will give. You shall be a crown of beauty in the hand of the Lord, and a royal diadem in the hand of your God. You shall no more be termed forsaken, and your land shall no more be termed desolate. But you shall be called, my delight is in her, and your land married. For the Lord delights in you, and your land shall be married. As for a young man marries a young woman, so shall your builder marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. The psalm today is Psalm 36, verses 5 through 10, and Psalm 36, verse 8. It's responsive, so please follow. Your love, O Lord, reaches to the heavens, and your faithfulness to the clouds.
Your righteousness is like the strong mountains, your justice like the great deep.
You have humankind and animals, O Lord. How priceless is your love, O God. All people take refuge under the shadow of your wings.
You feast upon the abundance of your house. You give them drink from the river of your delights.
For with you is the well of life, and in your light we see light. Continue your loving kindness to those who know you, and your favor to those who are true of heart. Our second reading is from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 1 through 11. The congregation at Corinth experienced division as people were comparing their spiritual gifts, thinking some to be superior to others. Paul invites his fractured community to trust that God's Holy Spirit has gifted him all perfectly for their mission together. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers and sisters, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that when you are pagans, you are enticed and led astray to idols that could not speak. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking by the Spirit of God ever says, "Let Jesus be cursed." And no one can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. And one is given through the Spirit an utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by one Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another the discernment of spirits, to another various kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. All these are activated by one and the same Spirit, who allots to each one individually, just as the Spirit chooses. This ends the readings.
Gospel reading for this morning is John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11.
Glory to you, O Lord.
On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no more wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out, and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom, and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's not very often when reading a miracle story of Jesus that you wonder, why does this miracle need to happen? I mean, when someone is possessed by a demon and they're tearing off their clothes and scratching off their skin and running out among the tombs, you'd say, yeah, this is probably a good time for Jesus to intercede. When there's a woman who's been hemorrhaging blood for 15 years and no physician can heal her, that's a good time for Jesus to intercede. When there's a little girl who is deathly ill and has just died, sure, good time for Jesus to intercede. A leper who's cast out from society, can't be with his family and friends anymore because of his skin disease. Sure, good time for Jesus to intercede. But the wine ran out at a wedding? Does this really require an act of God to fix this problem? Is this really something that God should have interfered with in the first place? If they ran out of wine, isn't that kind of their fault? But nonetheless, Jesus is here, God shows up to the party, and a miracle happens. And we might wonder, who is this miracle for, really? And John seems to say that it's for Jesus' disciples, so that they can come to believe in him. His mom clearly already knows. She's the one that puts the whole plan in motion. And some, maybe to be a little silly, might say that this miracle is for the wedding guests because they ran out of wine and they wanted more. Now they have it. But if there's one person who this miracle is really for, I think it's the poor bridegroom who ran out of drinks at his own party. Now, there might be a lot of reasons why they ran out of wine. Maybe they invited a couple more alcoholics than they thought. Maybe there's some middle-aged woman at this party who every time she has to interact with her in-laws, the only way she can survive is after 5 glasses of wine, and it just so happened that the entire extended family was there. But sometimes the simplest explanation is the best explanation. It kind of sounds like this bridegroom did not have the money he needed for his wedding. Not only did they run out of wine, but the steward comes and says, "You saved the good wine for last," when, to be clear, he didn't buy the good wine. Now, this might have been a way for John to show that the bridegroom did put out the good wine first, at least the best wine he had, and Jesus' wine was just so much better that the steward thought it was the good wine. But if we take it at face value, what the steward says to the bridegroom here is a pretty harsh insult. You put out the inferior wine first. It sounds like this guy did the equivalent of prepping for his wedding by going to Walmart and buying a bunch of the little boxes of wine, but not enough for everyone to have some. To be fair, there's nothing wrong with getting boxed wine. If you invite me to a wedding, I'll drink your boxed wine. But it does appear that this guy just didn't have the money he wanted to have for this party. And that's a really unenviable position to be in. I mean, what do? Just not invite people? Imagine going down to, Cana's not a huge town. Imagine going out to the market the next day and finding one of your acquaintances there, and they say, hey, I heard you had a wedding last week. Did my invitation get lost in the mail? Well, no, it's just, I don't have a lot of money, and we're not that close anyway. I figured you wouldn't really miss this party. Oh, well, I invited you to my wedding. I just thought we were friends. You wouldn't want to run into that situation, so of course he's going to invite anyone, including Jesus and his disciples. But then what do? Maybe at the party you say, all right, guys, go easy on the wine. And then someone spits it out of their mouth and says, go easy on the wine, what are you talking about? It's not expensive. This is boxed wine from Walmart. So it sounds like what the bridegroom did is kicked the can down the road as far as he could. We'll invite as many people as we can. We'll put out as much wine as we have. And when we run out, I guess we run out. There's something here about hospitality. It's trying so hard, but it can't quite get there. The miracle here is fixing broken hospitality. But it's not broken hospitality like a host just kicked out a guest for no reason and violated the unspoken rules of hospitality. It's that the host was trying, but just wasn't actually good enough to be as hospitable as the situation demanded. The bridegroom was just limited. He didn't have enough resources to do what needed to be done. But fortunately, unbeknownst to him, he just happened to have invited God to his wedding. And when God appears, God can make hospitality effective even if we can't. Now that's really interesting because for us even today, hospitality is a matter of faith. Whether you're inviting a new person to church or just a new friend to your house, you're inviting a new person to be part of your life in any way, engaging in some sort of hospitality, you're making yourself vulnerable. I remember a time when I was in college at the Lutheran Center. Some of us were just hanging out in the lounge at the Lutheran Center during the week, and a homeless person walked in. He was a very tall, broad, strong-looking man. And I am bigger than the average guy, but this guy was much bigger than me. And anytime someone's much bigger than me, it makes me a little scared. Because I know if something goes wrong, I'm not going to win. So it was a little extra scary when it turned out that this guy was homeless and he was saying some pretty eccentric things. I wasn't really sure what would happen. But we invited him to the space nonetheless. Now it's very possible that he could have broken something, whether unintentionally or he got angry and broke something, or he had something against someone there. It's very possible that a fight could have broken out. Fortunately, nothing bad happened. But I've had other encounters with people where this hasn't been quite so clear. I remember walking in Lincoln with my brother one day, and a person came up to us in the road along the sidewalk and kind of stopped us in our tracks and asked for some money. I gave some money to him, but I had the slightest suspicion that this was not a normal person just asking for spare change. I've never had someone step in front of my path, look me square in the eyes, and say, I need some money, in such a forceful way. I'm not saying I was robbed. He didn't threaten me in any way. But I also got the impression that if I didn't give the money, there might have been a problem. When you invite people close to you, sometimes when you're just out in their space, there is a risk that something might get taken from you. Now, let me be clear, I'm not disparaging homeless people. I'm not saying that homeless people are likely going to rob you, or if you invite a homeless person into your home or your church, that you're probably going to lose something. In fact, in no cases in which I've seen a homeless person come into a church have I actually seen something be taken. But the fear we feel is real. Whether or not it's rational, whether or not it's backed up by facts, we feel that there's a risk. There's someone from the outside that we don't know, we haven't vetted them, they're not a part of this community, we can't hold them accountable in the same way that we can hold someone accountable here. There's a risk that something could go wrong and we'd have no recourse. Anytime you engage in hospitality with a stranger, you become vulnerable. But it's not only vulnerable to material loss, it's not just that they might take something or they might break something. This is especially true with children. When you're at a church that's used to older people and then you invite children to the church, a window's going to be broken. When you've got children, something's going to happen. Coffee's going to spill on the floor. Something's going to smell weird. But it's not just the threat of material loss. There's also the threat of change when we invite new people into our lives, into our spaces, into our communities. When a church invites a lot of new people, there's a risk that the traditions that we have will get washed away, that they'll get challenged, that we'll have to change, that we'll have to adapt to new members. When you invite someone into your own personal life, there's a chance that they will change you. And that's always hard. Because to change means that you must have been in some way wrong before. If someone points out to you something about yourself that you realize is actually a problem that you never really realized, it hurts. Because not only do you realize you're not as good of a person as you thought you were, but you also recognize that you don't know yourself as well as you thought. And anytime you have to confront yourself with the fact that you don't actually know yourself, it's scary. It's scary to think that there's some part of me that I don't understand. I'm operating a machine that is my body, but I don't even get it. I don't even know how it works. I don't even know how my brain works. There's things that I think and feel that I don't even know that I'm thinking and feeling. There's prejudices I have that I don't realize. There's distrust and jealousy that I've buried. And when we interact with people, new people, and we confront those realities about ourselves, not only do we realize that there might be more to us that we don't get, that we ourselves are a mystery even to us, but we also have to confront ourselves with mistakes that we've made. Things we've done in the past that we've blamed on other people that might actually be our fault after all. Being vulnerable is hard, and whenever we invite new people into our lives, we're vulnerable. Being hospitable takes an act of courage. It is a manifestation of faith. But when God shows up, God makes hospitality possible. God makes it so that we can change without breaking. God makes it so that the memories of our traditions and our past can be preserved while we adapt to the new. While we welcome unfamiliar faces, we can still prize and cherish the faces of the old, whether we still hold them here in our community or whether we've lost them and we're trying to carry on their memory. God makes hospitality possible. Now, to be clear, I don't want to say that this person invited Jesus, and inviting Jesus just makes it so that once you invite Jesus, that means you've done a good enough thing, that God will reward you with good hospitality. God will change your water into wine because you've done a good deed in inviting people. That's not really it. I don't think the bridegroom got this miracle on his behalf because he did something good. The bridegroom had this miracle because God was there. It's not about us. The presence of God makes hospitality possible. And if we have the faith, trust that God is here in our community, in our lives, with us along the journey, wherever we may be, then we can trust that God will be there to change our water into wine, to make our vulnerability safe enough, to allow us to invite others in. Thanks be to God. Amen.